Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just a few housekeeping things before we start the meeting. I feel like this is a little too loud. Hold on, we'll be adjusting these as well. Good evening and welcome. I wanted to let the members of our audience know that we're very thankful that you're here this evening. Thank you for being engaged. If you have not already done so and would like to make public comment, now is the time to put in that public comment form because we're about to get to that part of the meeting. For those watching at home, please understand that this is a bit of a different setup, and for those in the audience, we will be doing a lot of group work this evening. The microphones will not be turned on during that time because then you'd have 16 microphones all going at the same time, which would make no sense to anyone. But each group will report out after. We have them do various exercises, so you'll know what their thoughts have been throughout that process. We do have a lot of staff here this evening to answer questions if we need to. And let's just make sure I have not forgot. Oh, so for those at home, we will be recording everything for transparency. However, you may just want to fast forward until we do the reporting out part. 1 second here. Oh, and the last part is for those in the audience, if you could please keep talking to a minimum. We understand the need to kind of talk and engage. However, it does get very difficult for our committee members to hear at times. So if you can please just keep that in awareness. And finally, if all of our committee members, we are going to have you get up in just a few minutes and move. But if you can make sure that your name tags that are turned to us is the white color so that we know that you have a question if it's green. And with that, Peggy, I'm going to turn it over to you to call to order.
Okay, good evening. I'm going to echo Marianne and thank everyone for being here tonight. It's a nice turnout from the committee and nice to see folks in the crowd. Thanks you to the staff for joining us to help us move along in our process. So I'm going to call the meeting to order. We'll do the roll call. Tony Badoni. Oh, thank you. Yeah, if you could reply audibly so then I don't have to keep looking up. Thanks. Stephanie Caldwell. Sarah Cameron. Maruja Calense. Amy Cocha. Jorge De Leon. Evaristo Escoto. Oscar Gomez. Here. Catherine Heller. Kevin Herrera. Here. Kristen Ippolito. Melanie Lindsay. Here. Sandy Lamelli Harrison. Peggy Mariansky here, Sarah McLaughlin, here. Catherine Mundo Garafa, Carol Peak, here. Andrea Rodriguez, here. Sydney Traub, Emmanuel Velasquez, here. Annette Walters, Monica West, here. And Stacy Whitaker. Here. Okay, thank you. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda, please, for tonight? And a second? Okay, thank you. And then we'll move to public comments. Marianne?
Thank you, Peggy. Just as a reminder, based on the number of public comment cards we have received this evening, you will have 3 minutes to speak. We will give you a 30-second warning, and the timer will indicate when time is up. Before we begin, we would like to remind everyone that the governing board recognizes the impact that civility has on the effective operation of the district, including its role in creating a safe and positive school climate and enabling a focus on student well-being, learning, and achievement. The board understands that the First Amendment provides strong protection for speech. However, they also expect that all speech, expression, and action will follow the norms of civil behavior on district grounds and in district meetings. Please remember that we do have students who attend these meetings and watch, so please keep language as respectful as possible. Please remember that per the Brown Act, we need to keep public comment within the scope of the School Closures Advisory Committee. I will call, we have 2 people this evening, so the first up will be Darcy Duffy, followed by Ashley Pope. Darcy?
Is that good? Yeah, it's loud. Good evening, members of the committee and staff and guests who are here with me. I speak tonight through several lenses as a parent of a child at Lemon Grove and Juana Maria, as a current teacher at Lemon Grove, and as a former teacher at Foothill Technology High School, and as a former student of Poinsettia, Cabrillo, and Ventura High School. We all view these decisions through our own experiences. Recognizing those perspectives is essential as we consider what will best serve our students, families, and community. I ask you to consider these 3 points. First, we should preserve neighborhood elementary schools whenever possible. These schools build community and promote equity. Keeping schools close to home reduces excessive travel time for young children and makes school events more accessible to parents and guardians, particularly those with unreliable transportation. Just today, a parent walked to school who's unable to drive met me at my classroom to complete her child's home campus account because she was unable to. He's autistic, and now he will be able to do cross country, which is his favorite thing. She can't drive. If he's on a bus, she wouldn't be able to get to school. Most of our elementary schools are geographically dispersed. However, Sheridan Way and E.P. Foster are relatively close, and based on enrollment numbers, may be able to consolidate. The data also suggests that students attending Mound could be accommodated at their neighborhood schools or at other nearby campuses. If consolidation is necessary, we should prioritize options that preserve neighborhood access and minimize disruption for families. Second, we must maintain K-8 options. The data shows that our district loses a significant number of students in grades 6 through 8. Our K-8 schools help address this challenge by providing continuity, stability, and options that families value. We should continue to explore ways to retain families who might otherwise leave the district during the middle school years. Third, we should keep Foothill Technology High School open. The data shows that many families return to our district for high school, and many specifically choose Foothill. It's a small school environment, benefits schools who may not thrive on a larger campus. The projected savings from closing Foothill do not fully account for students who may choose a smaller program outside our school district or the resulting loss of our ADA funding. Additionally, specialized programs such as bioscience and DTech cannot simply be relocated. The staff who built them may not follow, and those
30
programs
seconds.
would start from the ground up again. I ran bioscience, and I supported DTech during my time at Foothill. I know firsthand the years of expertise, collaboration, and commitment required to build successful programs like these. A program is more than its name or curriculum, it's also the people and culture behind it. Please protect neighborhood schools, access, preserve K-8 options, and keep Foothill Technology High School open. Thank you, and I apologize I can't stay tonight because I have to pick up a child, but your discussion is really important, and I will watch it, and thank you for serving.
Thank you. Up next, Ashley Pope.
Good evening, School Closure Advisory Committee. My name is Ashley Pope, and I'm here tonight as a parent, resident, and student advocate. I'm not here to advocate for or against the closure of any particular school. I know you have been given an incredibly difficult task, and I simply want to share what I hope guides you as you move towards your recommendations. First, don't fix what isn't broken. If a school is full, thriving, and efficiently using its capacity, closing it with the idea that it will help fill other campuses will likely create a new problem instead of solving one. School of Choice and the special track programs in this district are some of the best concepts that VUSD has ever implemented. Please preserve them. Second, ensure equity and access are treated as fundamental considerations, not simply additional points on the scoring rubric. A seat somewhere in this district is not necessarily an accessible seat for every student. Geography matters. K-8 schools and specialized programs often meet the needs that alternative options cannot. These considerations may not show up in the data as neatly as enrollment numbers or test scores, but they matter to the students who depend on them. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, please make the difficult recommendation. If we close too few schools, we may be sitting here doing this all over again in 5 or 10 years. For years, declining enrollment has forced VUSD to spread limited resources across more campuses than those resources can comfortably support. We've already seen what that costs our students: programs, positions, services, and opportunities lost, while we continue paying to operate too many campuses. What good is it to preserve every school if doing so leaves us unable to serve the students inside of them with the excellence and opportunity that each of those students deserves? Closing schools is painful, but continually cutting from classrooms to avoid making difficult decisions has cumulative and compounding consequences, and our students are already experiencing those consequences. Right-sizing this district is a critical step towards a future where every student in Ventura has access to a full slate of inclusive programs, expanded opportunities and innovation, and campuses staffed based on what students need, rather than on what we can afford. You have already spent months collecting an enormous amount of information, and my hope is that you will use it to not only rank individual schools, but to boldly envision what VUSD should look like 5, 10, or even 20 years from now. A great first step in deliberation would be to determine how many school sites VUSD would actually need to serve its projected enrollment if our campuses were operating at healthy, sustainable capacity. The number is likely
30
going to be
seconds.
far lower than the number of schools anyone would reasonably recommend closing, but understanding the true scale of our under-enrollment is critical to understanding the decision before you. Please center equity and access and recommend a level of consolidation necessary to create a not only balanced budget, but the resources to invest back into classrooms and students. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and that is all the public comment we have for this evening. So Peggy, it's back to you.
Okay, it looks like from our previous meetings, were we going to go over the norms? Can we go back to the norms slide? Oh, we don't have it?
You can give me a moment. I didn't have it in the folder for this evening.
Oh,
Let me see if
okay.
I can go to another folder and grab it. for
Okay,
you.
thanks. So shall we move on or wait just a moment? Okay.
I can download it or keep it like this. It's up to you.
Okay,
Oops.
I think it's readable.
Sorry. Give me 1 second.
Oh, no, it was the next one. Sorry. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so if we could just take a moment to start at the top and skim down through the code of conduct suggestions, I think that might be helpful in tonight's meeting, especially where this conversation is very different than what we've previously been doing. So I'd like to take just a minute or two to do that, please. Okay, thanks. And then from the previous meetings, we had some follow-ups that Hassan was going to address.
Yeah, so there were some follow-up items. I want to thank Sandy and Maruha. They got us in contact with some county contacts and some city contacts, and then working with Eric Reynolds, our risk management director and transportation director, we were able to collaboratively give them the needs of what this committee wanted. And so some of the requests were like looking at, so they were able to plot our map in a GIS system, all of our schools within the city limits, and we provided that as a link. And also they added in all the crimes that happened, all the collisions that occurred within our boundaries. And then also attached to the agenda is transportation injury inquiry. So what this also gives you is the types of crashes from fiscal year 21 to 26, whether they were bicycle related or pedestrian related, along with it also tells you if they were fatal, serious, or any other visible injuries. And so this data will be available indefinitely. We confirmed that with the city staff, so that link will be live forever, and it's available for all public.
For anyone in the audience, you can use the QR code that's currently on your screen to get to the agenda that has those attachments.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do we want a moment to look through that, or have we already had a chance to look through it? Any feedback from the committee? No? Okay. Then we'll go ahead and look at the minutes from the previous meeting in July. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from July? Can someone move to approve the minutes for July? Thank you. Okay, I guess all in favor? Aye, thanks. Okay, and now we're at the scoring and ranking of school sites.
Yeah, hello. So we have invited Brianna Garcia tonight. She's a representative for School Services of California to come here today and lead the discussion and the activities around scoring and ranking of the school closures recommendations. Dr. Castro, want to add anything? Okay. So Brianna, you can take it away.
I'm used to standing up and moving, so this is going to be weird. I'm also a hand talker. So, hi, my name is Brianna Garcia. I'm with School Services of California, and as Asan noted, I'm just here to help this evening facilitate this process and hope to help you work through what schools you're going to recommend to the board for potential closure. So what staff is handing out right now, you're looking at 2 sheets of paper. The first one, which is on the legal-sized paper, are the scorings that you've seen, a summary of the scoring that you've been seeing every week as you've been looking at each category. And so what you'll see at the top, all the schools, all the elementary schools are listed across the top, which is where we're going to start this evening. You have the criteria down the left-hand side, and then for each school you have the score that you've been looking through, and then the rank score. There's a total at the bottom of the score and the rank score, and then a total. I want to note that these scores are not determinative. If they were, you wouldn't be here. We could do math very easily. The point in this is to try to give you a point of reference in a way really to try to look at all of the data and hopefully help organize that data for you a little bit. So the notion with this is you can see where each one of them, what the score was, whether it was yes or no for the score, and in the rank score, where they ranked as compared to the other elementary schools within the district. And that should give you a perspective. If you see that a school ranked 17, well, why did that rank the highest given that criteria? And then you can look back at the data that you received during that meeting to look at that information. So all this is really trying to do is, again, give you a point of reference and something to help organize that data for you. So that the legal size piece of paper gives you all of the criteria and all of the school sites. Did I hear a question?
Well, you said all schools. It's just elementary schools, right?
My apologies, yes.
Okay.
So we're going to be a little bit methodical about these. We're going to start with the scoring, reviewing, the ranking of the elementary schools. Once we get through those, we'll move to the middle schools. Once we get through those, we'll move to the high schools, so that you're looking at it in chunks and not trying to capture the whole thing at one time. Thank you for that. The second sheet that you have, again, just a way to try to help you kind of look at and focus some information. This second sheet, what it's doing is just providing you the rank scores for those criteria that had rank scores. If you'll recall, and even if you look at the legal size sheet of paper, there were some criteria that there weren't rankings for. And so this is just trying to show you, A, which ones had rank scores, the criteria that had them, and then the top 7 schools that ranked at the highest. And the idea here is what we want to do what we want you to do is to provide the board with the ranking of the top 7 elementary schools. You have been looking at a lot of data. All of that information is going to be provided to the board. Ultimately, you're making a recommendation, and the board is the one that has to make that decision. They are going to have potentially additional questions. They might have staff provide additional information, and they might have information that you may not have, whether it's because it's new information or just additional that they requested. And so we want to be able to give the board some flexibility while still ensuring that they're taking into account all of the hard work that you guys have done over these last several months in looking at this information. So by providing them a ranking of the top 7 scores or the top 7 schools, that is letting them know the committee has looked at all of this. This is where the committee has narrowed it down to for their recommendation, so that they can then further look at that and then determine how many schools they believe, based on staff input and their knowledge, that need to be closed, and what your thoughts were on each one of those. And so what this is doing is just, again, a different look at the data, not determinative. It's letting you know for those criteria with ranked score, which are the schools that ranked in that top 7. And it seems a little backwards because you look at this and you say there's not 1 through 7 on here. The top 7 from 17 down to 11, because if you'll remember for most of these criteria, so for example, the first one, the highest rank goes to the school with the lowest enrollment. So number 17 was Lincoln. Of the 17 schools, Lincoln had the lowest enrollment for that criteria. So that's number 17. 16 was Lemon Grove, and so forth. So for each one of the criteria, you see 11 through 17, so those are the top 7 that were ranked in that category. Does that make sense? Do I have any questions on that?
I think the word top might be confusing some, because they think top is good.
In this case, let's use a different word. So these are just the 7 schools that ranked the highest. And the criteria that ranked the highest were based on each one of these. So again, for criteria 1, the lowest enrollment, number 17 ranked the highest. That meant that that was the school with the lowest enrollment. And so when you're looking at those total numbers, all else being equal, that school would be the one that you would say, okay, that would be higher on my list to close because it has the lowest enrollment, just for that criteria. The second one, least diverse population. Number 17 on that one was Sheridan Way. Again, it ranked the highest on that specific criteria. And so you're always looking at the ones with the higher number, meaning it ranked the highest, which means it would be higher on the list for potential closure. But again, just numbers. Part of what you're doing here today is to have that conversation and determine not only what's on this piece of paper, all of the data you've received, in order to take that into consideration. You have the maps of where they're located. You have the information about special education and what's the free and reduced price meal counts for each one of these schools. You have all of that data that you've been hearing and that you have within your binders. And so this is just, again, pointing you to that information in that direction as you're having those conversations in order to arrive at a recommendation. Did that make it clear, or did I just make it worse? Okay.
If it's not clear, please kind of wave the green. I can't see it from everyone. Okay, I'm seeing 2 questions. Sarah first, and then Stacey.
I am looking at the criterion 1, which is the low enrollment, and I see from the papers we got before that Lincoln is at 80% utilization rate, which is pretty high. So how can it be number 17? Look at that. The lowest enrollment.
You're looking at enrollment versus capacity of, criteria 1 looks at specifically just the enrollment numbers, and then the other criteria is looking at the capacity, the actually building capacity to house the students.
Yeah, the 80% is the amount of, if you're looking at the school can actually seat X number of students, and there's Y number of students, what percentage of that school are those students occupying? That's the capacity, and that's that 80% number you're talking about.
Okay.
So that would be criteria number 3.
Can you please use your microphone? Sorry.
So just to be clear, lowest enrollment is the least number of students, and it doesn't take into account the capacity at the school?
Not criteria number one. So remember, all of these are providing different points of information, and you're not taking anyone in isolation. You're not simply saying, oh, this one has the lowest number of students, and so that's the one we're closing. That's one piece of information. So criterion number one is just looking at the enrollment. Then you go to criteria number 3, that's the excess capacity, and that looks at how many students are actually on that school campus as compared to how many seats are available on that campus. So to your example with regards to Lincoln, criterion number 1 shows it as the lowest enrollment, so that's why it has a number 17. However, if you look at capacity, you see it's not ranked in the top 7 because it is at 80%, which is relatively high compared to some of the other schools. So that's why when you're looking at these, you have to take multiple things into consideration. It's not just that one piece of data, because it does have the lowest enrollment, but given the size of the school, the capacity is pretty high.
Stacy.
I apologize. I'm not sure if I'm confused, but I know you said that you can do the math, right? So we're not here to do that. It sounds like you've already whittled it down for us and made it into, you want us to consolidate and find the most, do you know what I'm saying?
Most closable 7.
Right, and most closable 7, but it looks like you've already kind of done that. I think I'm confused about what our actual function is here tonight, because...
So these are the numbers from all of your meetings since January.
Right, but it looks like it's all pretty much laid out to which schools we're supposed to be recommending.
Well, there's other considerations that you know that these numbers aren't telling you. For example, and I'm making this up because I don't know your community the way that you do. It could be that the top 3 schools that pop out of here are all within a mile of each other. You don't want to close 3 schools that are all within a mile of each other because that won't work for your community. So as you're having your conversations, you could go, yep, those are the top 3, but for these reasons, it doesn't make sense to close all 3 of those. We really should close, we would recommend that we close this one, but not look at these other 2 because they're all neighborhood schools. You could look at this information and say, yep, these are the bottom, or again, these are the top 3 or top 6 with regards to numbers, but we know that this has a high percentage of socioeconomically disadvantaged students. We don't want to close all the schools with socioeconomically disadvantaged students because of X, Y, or Z reasons. And so, again, the idea with this is it's providing you with data and information so you can go back and then look at that actual data and that information, and based on what you know, we want you to be able to think about that and come up with a recommendation. The numbers never tell you everything, because as I said, and as you just repeated, if you went by the numbers, the district could have made this decision. But there are other factors, and the community is a big part of that, and so we want you to be part of and look at those recommendations. What we were trying to do here was just try to give you the data in different ways to try to help organize it for you. But this should not mean that, okay, we got it, the top 7 scores, those are the ones we're closing, our work here is done. Because there are other things that you know that should be taken into consideration as you make this decision. Does that make sense?
And Brianna, I can add to that. Obviously, you weren't here for the last meeting, but I think Brianna's comments were reflected in the committee's desire for it not to come just highlighted with the top 7. I think that was the discussion. It was, and so her comments are reflective of that, that these are data points. Yes, it's math, but it's not the determination. It's not the insight, the analysis, the application, and all of the things that we're talking about in terms of context. And so that's why the data is coming to you that way, because you really wanted it to be able to just see where the numbers were and not have things predetermined for you.
So my question is, and this is maybe from my teacher brain. So if the score is, the top line is 36, 35, out of what?
So if you'll recall, there were 24 criteria. For each criteria, there was a score, which was typically, in most cases, a yes or a no. And you can look at your individual sheets that you've had over the last several meetings. And then there was a rank score that ranked them relative to each other. So that's why those went from 1 to 17 in most cases. And so it's not necessarily This is, you're not looking at, 36% is good, bad, or anything else. It's not out of a total of 100, for example. So what you're really, in some respects, looking at is relative to one another. Here's one at 36, this one is at 34. Well, what's causing that number to be at 36? Oh, it's because it was if you look at the legal size sheet of paper, let's just look at Atlas since it's the first one on the list. The lowest enrollment, or the question or the criteria with that one was, does the school have an enrollment less than 70% now and 3 years from now? If the answer was yes, it received a 2. If the answer was no, it received a 1. And so for each one of those, depending on whether the answer was yes or no in most cases, that's where it got a 1 or a 2, and then that score got totaled.
So looking at these yeses, in some of them a yes is 2 and a no is 1, and in others a yes is 1 and a no is 2, so that the numbers aren't necessarily that helpful?
So the numbers go with the question that's being asked. So, for example, the criterion 1 is the lowest enrollment. So this one was looking at whether or not the enrollment was below at or below 70%.
Yeah.
And so if you have a school with a low enrollment, it would be more likely to be one that you would consider for closure, and so that's why it received a 2, because that's a higher score, versus, let's find one where a yes is a 1. Least expensive recently completed projects. The answer or the question there was the amount of dollars with regards to whether it had projects that had been recently completed or not. Again, the logic there is if a school just had, making up a number, $10 million worth of upgrades, the answer is yes, it's only a 1, because that would be potentially lower on the list for potential closures because you just spent $10 million doing upgrades on that school. So that's why, depending on the criterion, the answer for yes might be 2 versus 1, because for certain criteria, a higher number will tell you that should be higher potentially on the list for closure versus lower.
I mean, I'm just still not understanding what numbers are meaning at this point. If sometimes a yes is a 2 and a no is a 1, and then the other way, but then the scores are, so what numbers are we looking for? Low numbers, high numbers? Like, I just want to make sure I'm not messing this up.
So if you go into your binder, so from the second meeting when you looked at enrollment, for example, you can see what the full question was for the criteria, and that tells you a yes or a no. Ultimately, what you're looking for potentially is higher numbers, would put it higher on the list for closure.
Okay. Thank you.
But again, we don't want to just go off of here's the total highest number, so let's go with that one necessarily. Yes, Tony.
Oh.
I have a question about 3 of the criterion. Now, criterion 15 and 16, with regard to how the school scored in the California score, we heard from Dr. Castro that in a lot of cases, a student's academic achievement is much impacted by their socioeconomic status. In other words, the level of their family income and their parents' education. Okay. And when you look at the scores and you look at also the least diverse population and the fact that these schools are neighborhood schools with boundaries determined eons ago by the district, it's really clear that you can look in a neighborhood and go, yeah, what would I predict? Well, based on the information we have, this is what I would predict in terms of those scores. So I'm not suggesting that we ignore that that's an issue at those schools, but rather that I'm not sure that that should be considered in this discussion as to whether you should close a school because of that. And in fact, there's one school that in criterion 2, 15, and 16 is number 17. But if you were to just look at the neighborhood, you would probably come to that consideration as well. Does that mean that school should be closed? So I have a little issue with that.
And I think that's a perfect example of what we were just talking about. That's why it's important that it's you and that it's people looking at that and making this decision and having those conversations. Because if you just went by these numbers, that might be the answer. Somebody who's got, oh, that one's easy. That one's the highest score on this Y and Z. That's the one we should close. But you have that information. You know what the demographics are of that school or those 3 schools or 4 schools, however many of them are. And as you're coming to have those conversations in groups, and as we work through these also individually, that's part of what you have to take into consideration. And that's why we're providing that information. So if you didn't have that, you wouldn't know and you might make a completely different decision. But having that information plus the information on the socioeconomic demographics, the unduplicated pupil count, that helps you have those conversations and hopefully then provide a recommendation based on that information as well.
Our
Yeah.
chair has the floor.
Yeah, thanks. I thought we had some consensus at the last meeting that we were going to evaluate what Tony's raised, the merits of these various criteria in making a school closure decision, because I thought that was where we agreed we wanted to start tonight instead of looking at total numbers of scores on the criteria. Am I remembering that wrong? Or, okay, I thought that's so. So I guess I'm a little bit confused about why we're already here when we haven't had a chance to evaluate the criteria in terms of its merits for school closure recommendations.
If that is the committee consensus, that's certainly what we can do. What we were trying to provide you here was all of the information. I can tell you that based on my experience, I think that having all of the data provides potentially a richer conversation. What we plan to do this evening is to, as you see, they're already in tables, but we're going to split you up and move you around a little bit and have you as a group have those conversations about the ranking of the schools, and then start to work our way through of hopefully eliminating some and then doing a couple of rounds of that to get there. And so I am definitely of the mind, as I was just mentioning to Tony, that it could be that the Spades group looks at this information and goes, no, we really do think that we should be looking at 3, 7, and 9, and that's how we're going to make our recommendation, while the clubs group might think, no, I really think it's important that we just look at 14 and 15. And so allowing those groups to be able to have those discussions and look at all of that information in order to come up with a recommendation, I think provides more information to make that decision from versus starting from the beginning with saying, okay, nope, we're only going to look at these 3 and that's all we're making our decision of. But if the committee would prefer to cut those down, we can have that conversation. But I wanted to provide you with my perspective on, I think the more, it's always, that fine line. The more data can be overwhelming, but we also don't want to lose something that for 1 or 2 people could be a determining factor.
And I'll just add, especially because I have a lot of the context of these conversations beforehand, if you were to eliminate the criteria before the discussion, you're also potentially skewing and giving more weight to other criteria that committee members at your tables, they now would not be able to use that as a justification for not following the math of it. So it cuts both ways, and we've talked about that throughout this. We have to ground ourselves in that it's hard to see this data, and it's hard to know sometimes what it represents. On the other hand, is knowing what it represents is also grounding us in potentially a decision that goes against the math. And so that's the reason that we didn't want to predetermine for the committee that we're giving this data and not giving that data. It's up to you to ultimately determine how that data is used and what the meaning behind it is. And so, but again, just as Brianna said, that's our rationale for making sure that you have that data. But ultimately, it's the committee's decision to determine what the data means and how much weight it has.
We have a question.
Well, I actually appreciate that. And if I don't think I realized that we were planning to start the conversation in small groups with the criteria. So I think I'm satisfied with that answer.
We have a few questions. Lindsay, then Stacy, then Tony. If I've not said your name, kind of wave me down. Sorry, Melanie Lindsay, not Lindsay.
Oh,
not that I haven't known you for years.
I just want to clarify, so we are only discussing the schools that have scores within a certain range, or are we discussing the potential of
All of the schools. So all this did was it took all of the schools and showed you if they ranked within that top 7. That's all this is showing you. This is showing you the scores for all of them. So all 17 schools are on the table. And what we want to start doing is first in groups, is start working on a process to try to get us to narrow that down and hopefully arrive at the top 7 that you as a group would recommend to the board in a rank order.
Tony?
That makes-
Can you use your microphone? Sorry.
Oh, yes, it would be good. Thank you.
So you see me, I wanted to stand
I
around
see
and
it.
I can't, so.
I can see you. Okay. Just wondering about the middle school data and also the 3 high schools. Are we going to get that data before we have these discussions?
So we're going to start with the elementary schools and hope we can get to that recommendation. Then, once we do that, we'll move to the middle schools and then we'll move to the high schools.
So there's an assumption that we're going to close a middle school or close an elementary.
All we're doing is we are going to rank them for the board so that then the board has that information and it's going to make a determination whether they're closing all elementaries, 1 middle, 1 high school. That is what the board will figure out. You're just going to provide a rank order for them to work with.
Thank you.
Any,
Uh-oh.
Peggy? Stephanie?
So one of the public comments was if there was some sort of understanding, if we look at it just straight from school capacity and enrollment, what right sizing would look like, right? If the schools were at the ideal capacity of enrollment with still some room to grow for the next, looking out 5-10 years based on the projected enrollment. I think that would help us understand, are we looking at making a recommendation for 1 school in the elementary category, 3 schools in the elementary category? I mean, I think it's really hard to make that determination unless we have a better understanding overall of what that looks like.
Of the numbers for enrollment, you mean?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's if what is for the district or for the state, like if you're looking at what is the ideal enrollment for these schools, elementary, middle, and high school, and understanding that, and then understanding the amount of elementary students we have, middle school students, and high school students, and then taking into account the projections for the continued declining enrollment, what does that look like as far as the right number of schools for Ventura Unified?
So 2 things. One, in your binders back from the second meeting, you have the data with regards to what the enrollment is now and what it looks like over the next several years and 5 years out. And it has that capacity information. So at least you do know the criteria, I believe, used a 70%. That's a good rough number as far as capacity. So if you have 70% of the school full, that leaves room for other programs that a school site might have, from computer labs to you need a space for the psychologist, whatever those things might be, and it leaves a little bit of room for growth as the district is moving forward. So 70% is about a good number. With regards to the number that will be closed, that really is a board determination. They are looking at all those things that you noted. They're looking at the fiscal implications. They're looking at that broader picture. And so the board is going to need to determine, in order for us to meet all of those needs, we need to close X number of schools. Since we don't have that data of how many, the board, to my understanding, and Dr. Castro can correct me if I'm wrong, hasn't made a decision of, yep, we're closing, and I'm saying this out loud, I'm making this up. The board hasn't said we're closing 1 high school, 1 middle school, 3 elementary schools. They haven't stated that yet. So that's why you as a committee, what we'd like you to do is rank the schools, and that way they know from all of the work that you guys have done, this is the order that you would close them, depending on how many it is that they're looking at closing.
Got it. Okay. Peggy?
No, the way you finished that was exactly right. Otherwise, I would have just been restating.
Because I didn't realize our task was to rank the schools. I guess I thought we were actually making a recommendation about you should, in our view, it would be wisest for the right sizing, is that our term? To close these X number and do it as a scenario, not as a list of if you're going to go shopping, close these, starting with this one and then this one and then this one, because sometimes like the 1 and 2, maybe it's 2 schools within a mile of each other, and that doesn't seem like a very good idea. So, but perhaps those come out as 1 and 2 on the list, but maybe we pick number 1 and then we jump down to number 5 and say, so to me, I didn't think that was what we were doing. So has that been changed?
I can share some insight, and then Brianna, you can take it from there. As we've talked about throughout this process, the process itself feels paradoxical, right? Like, what is the purpose of this committee? The purpose of this committee is to make recommendations to the board about which schools you believe should be closed. The criteria is one element of that. So when you were saying we didn't realize that we were supposed to rank them, ranking them is one way that could be helpful to determine which of the schools meet a criteria and could be closed or they're most eligible for closure, but it isn't the only way that you can determine. So in some cases, the ranking in your tables will feel really compelling, and you'll look at the way that it's ranked and go, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. And then you'll look at the ranking for another school on that same list and think, I don't agree. Although, yes, this school ranks high, here are 3 or 4 reasons why, although it ranks high, I don't feel comfortable recommending that school for closure. So the committee, that's a long way to say the committee is not tasked with ranking schools. We talked about last time, we knew that we were going to come in here, the math bears it out, the ranking plays itself out. Your task is not to rank schools. Your task is to take all of the information, some of which resides in the ranking, some of which just resides within your knowledge of the district and your experience within the district, to make recommendations that you would support if the board were to close one of those schools, that you would feel content knowing that the analysis that went along with that as a committee, that you could get behind the idea that, yes, we understand the board's decision for closing that school, and we recommend it. That said, also, the other paradox of that is just because you have consensus, if you do have consensus, it does not necessarily mean that the board is going to go along with that recommendation. So I hope that answers. And Brown, is there anything I missed?
I think I was going to add, it's giving the board some options. The other part of it is if the committee, let's say we go through this and we put them, okay, here's the 7 elementary schools, here's the middle schools, here's the high schools. The committee really feels strongly we'd like to provide the board with a scenario as well, that we think it should be this, this, and this, or however that is. We can add that as well. It's your recommendation to the board. And so if we're providing them with information in 2 different formats so that they have that holistic picture of your deliberations, and that's the consensus of the group, we can certainly do that as well. It's not a do it this way or, we're walking out the door. If there's really something that comes up from the committee and they go, we really would like to present X as a scenario, that can be included as well.
We have a number of questions, so one moment. We've got Melanie, then Catherine, then Stephanie.
Mine's just a logistical question. So the projection on page 67 from the section that Brianna's talking about said that for the 26-27 school year, we would be down to 13,777 kids. We're 12 days in. Is that accurate? Do we have that info yet?
Yeah, we're about 50 students off. It's pretty accurate.
Higher or lower?
No. Our projections were 50 students higher than what
we currently have. So the number that we actually have is 50 lower than that? Okay.
I do want to state, though, that still we need to wait until Seabed's Day, October 1st, before that's official. Yeah.
I was going to say, the data you're working with is from you.
Because that can go up and down, but I want to affirm what Asan said, that by and large, those projections are almost spot on.
Okay, I'm just being curious. So the board has all this information that we have. Is that correct? Or not yet? Are they getting it after we receive it? Do they have all this?
I think staff has presented different pieces.
The board, like the community, has everything that has been made public.
Okay.
Yes.
And will they are looking at it on their own time, doing their own thing, and then after we come to them with our recommendations, they then discuss, there's no like looking at it and discussing before we have the chance to present? Okay, just curious.
Well, yes and no. They will not be discussing a recommendation from this committee that they don't have, right? So that's one thing. But one of the pieces of information that we brought in, which was the personnel salary / facilities analysis of the potential costs from each site, we brought that to them to calibrate for the committee. So that way you would know how the board would feel comfortable saying, here is the maximum amount that could be saved, here is the minimum that could be saved, and then here's that in between where they didn't want to commit up front to saying that, yes, you can absolutely consider these positions in those estimates. So yes, they are creating some guidance, but no, they are not having open discussions. There have been no agendized meetings about school closure. So if they're going through the same materials that the rest of the public has and starting to put things together, absolutely. But no, the board has not yet agendized a conversation about school closure to be had as a board. Thank you.
Stephanie?
Can you explain what the rest of our process is on how we're, you mentioned that we got these 2 documents for the elementaries. Once we rank these, then we'll be getting the same documents for middle. And then once we finish that, we'll be getting the same for high school. And then what is next?
So you'll have your recommendation in pieces. We'll have a conversation with the committee, is there anything else? Are there scenarios? Is there anything else you want to recommend to the board? As you are meeting in your groups, when each of the groups, I'll start here. We're going to break you up into groups. And then we're going to give you 15 to 20 minutes in your groups to start having that conversation, deliberate, for you to come back as a group and say, okay, here's the top 7 that we would recommend. We're going to take that from each of those. When you present that, somebody from each of your groups or will be, volunteer to be spokesperson. We'd like you to present, okay, here's our top 7 and here's the reasons why. These are the things that our group considered when we made this recommendation. And so we want to make sure that we capture that information so that everybody else hears each other's thinking. Hopefully, as we get all of those, we'll see that we could narrow down the list, because maybe there's 3 schools that is not on anybody's list, and we can all hopefully agree, all right, let's take those off the list. And then we'll do that process again, trying to get us down to 7. And then also then want to make sure that as individuals you have the ability to rank, because as we all know, we're in a group and we may, I can go with that, but I wouldn't have exactly done it that way myself. And so we want to give each of you the opportunity to individually do this rank. We'll have you write it down. We'll collect that information. We'll do a tally to hopefully then get us to the final 7 that we're looking at. So that's the idea for the elementaries, because there's so many schools to go through. So we'll go through a couple of iterations of that, trying to get down to that 7 that you as a committee can reach a consensus and say, okay, we can support that, and that's the information that we'll be providing to the board.
So we're looking for 7 elementary schools.
Correct.
And then how many middle schools?
We are going to since there's only 4 middle schools, we're just going to rank all 4 of them.
Okay.
And then same thing, high schools, there's 3 of them, we're just going to rank all 3 of them.
So if, for instance, the committee had a strong feeling that it shouldn't, the closure, even though there's 7 elementaries, but maybe we feel strongly that, let's say, a middle school needs to close. Is that something that we can add in after we go through all of that process to say, we rank the closure of a middle school higher than?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Brianna, maybe you could just clarify, so if they may come to some sort of consensus and as they move to the middle school, if a conversation sparks where they need to go back and adjust the elementary to something that happened in the middle school, they'll have an opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have additional questions. We'll go with Stacy, then Melanie.
Sorry.
Okay. Not Melanie.
You do that to me every time. I'm curious where the number 7 came from.
We were just trying to provide, there are 17 elementary schools, and trying to provide the board with some flexibility. As we said, there's information that the board might be considering. There's other information they might be asking district staff of. And if you went back and only gave them 2 and they determined, again, for the record, making it up. They determined, nope, we need to close 4 of them. And we only gave them 2 to consider and look at. That would then have the board looking at information and additional information. So 7 was just a number of, hey, this is a good number of schools so that they have something to work with. There was no, as I said, the board hasn't come out and said X number of schools are being closed, et cetera.
So they won't interpret our 7 as being that we recommend closing 7 schools, because I'm not sure that we feel comfortable.
No, and actually wanted to add that there. It also may be, remember, we're just giving you structure for the conversation. It may be that at your tables, you don't come to consensus on 7. You're like, we've looked at the data, we have consensus on 5. Either way, the ranking is still there. So the concept is, try and find 7. But no, in no way is that an expectation that if you did have consensus on those 7, that the board is then, okay, well then we're going to close 7 schools. Yeah.
And we can make that very clear as well as part of the recommendation. This is the committee's, recommended schools for options, and not that the committee in any way endorses the closure of 7 schools. There was a hand over. Can you use that?
Kristen, can you use that? Thank you.
Sorry. What's the rationale for 3 high schools when they're all 3 different? In other words, there's only one of those that is traditional, the other 2 are not. So I don't understand the reasoning for that.
And again, the idea isn't that the board is closing all 3 or more than 1, et cetera. And that's part of the conversation that you would be having at your tables. It's if the board is closing a high school, this is the recommended order that as we looked at it for X, Y, or Z reason, which we'll make a note of, this would be the reason why and the order why we would note them that way. And the board then is making that decision of which one they are going to close, taking that and other information into account.
And just for the good of the broader community, people may be starting to tune in that haven't watched like all these other previous meetings. Just a reminder, the board has already determined that Buena and Ventura will not be closed. So when we're saying 3 high schools, Buena and Ventura are not 2 of those high schools. When we're talking about other high schools, we're talking about not Buena and Ventura.
And the reason for that, if we can just be clear.
And the reason for that is that based on the projections that we had, if you try to close Buena currently, there is no place where all of those students would be able to exist. If you tried to close Ventura presently, there is no place on a high school where you could put all those students. Thank you for the prompt.
Okay, so should we move with the cards and then get additional questions from the tables as we move into them?
Yeah.
Sorry, did not see that.
I'm sorry. So we have to put 3 high schools on a ranking list, correct?
We will get to that. Right now, we're going to focus on
I'm just
elementary.
concerned that if let's say we don't want to put any of the schools on there, we're still being asked to put schools on there, correct?
That would be helpful for the board. If the board decides that it needs to close a high school, what they're looking for is for this committee's recommendation, because you've gone through this process, looked at all of this information and have that data and have the knowledge that's in this room to do that.
But we have 3 high schools right now, not counting Buena and Ventura, so all 3 of them have to be on the list.
Correct. So you'd be ranking those 3 schools. The same thing with the middle schools. It's all 4 of them. You're just ranking them to say, hey, if you were to close one board, this is the one we'd recommend you close first for X, Y, and Z reason. And we didn't put this last one on the list because of these reasons, so that they have an understanding of what the thoughts are with the committee with those 4 middle schools. So if they decide one needs to be closed, they have the benefit of your thinking and all of the information that you've been looking at.
It just feels a little leading.
And so I'll just add there that the element of that is leading is just, to state the obvious, the purpose of the committee is a school closures advisory committee, right? That's the part that's leading. And where the committee has both the opportunity and the obligation to make those recommendations or not. That's where the committee resides. You're in that uncomfortable place of, are we comfortable ranking so few? No. But if the board were to close a school, you have the opportunity, and in this case, because you've stepped forward, an obligation to make that best recommendation based on all the energy and efforts and data that you've reviewed to the board to say, if you are going to close something, here is our recommendation. And you can conversely say, and we've talked about this just for a little bit in the final report, just because there may be consensus of the committee to make those recommendations, there isn't anything to say that there could be a whole bunch of asterisks, in the report that says, but we also want the board to consider, fill in all those things. So again, that is that paradox where you sit. The purpose of the committee is to assist the board in potentially closing schools. And however you get there, that wisdom is something that I think the board is really going to appreciate.
We have 2 more questions. First, Tony, then Kristen. Please use the microphone.
Thank you for the reminder. This is going to sound like a dumb question, but I know that fiscally, your financial departments, your board, you have certain targets with the idea of closing schools. It's because it's a money issue, right? And so should we know any more about that part in terms of 07 versus 08 versus, 27, I'm still back in 07, 28, 29, like the next 3, 4, 5, 10 years. Are there targets that the board has that maybe we should be aware of?
No. Let me go back to the data that we provided about like the general savings per school. So it hovers around that 750 to just about $1 million for a good size elementary, that 1.5 to 2 million for a good size middle school. And not because we don't have our largest high schools on there, it's just a little bit more than that 2.5 to well, it's right around there for the other high schools. We know how much could be saved just, again, doing the math. Where the board has to deliberate is the threshold, is the pain point, is the permanent changes to the community. Sure, could we save $7.5 million by closing these 3 or 4 schools? The answer is yes, we know that mathematically. But the pain points and the cultural implications and all of the rest of that, is it worth that? And is it worth the other elements of changing school communities, permanently changing the the walkability of potential neighborhood schools? So that's why it's not, is it ultimately about a number? Yes, there is ultimately a savings there, but we had 2 public comments tonight. They touched on this, which is, it's not just about that too. It's also the ability, how are we going to staff the schools that exist? The quality of that, the spread of the district, how much time, less or more time kids spend on a bus, all of those things. Yeah.
Kristen?
So am I incorrect in thinking that I believe that the boards said that it was going to be 3 to 5 schools? Because in my head, that's what I've heard from, maybe it's my own personal conversations, but that's why I'm trying to clarify, because I never heard we were ranking every single.
I appreciate that. And this question came up, I think, probably in our second meeting. There are, let me tie this to the question that was asked earlier. The board has not weighed in on school closures. They have given some guidance. So Boyne and Ventura will not be closed, and this is how much we think we would feel comfortable saving from each site generally, and approving this body to exist. However, individually, there are board members who in individual comments or on social media have stated things like, I would feel comfortable, closing this amount of schools. Other board members would say, I'm not sure I'm comfortable closing any. So I think that in terms of like conversations that have been had or stances that have been taken, that is absolutely within board members' purview to say, I feel this way about school closure, I feel that way about school closure. The distinction here is that would be individual board members and their general inclinations prior to receiving the recommendation, prior to having a chance to weigh in on this. And then ultimately, just as it is with any decision, if there is a consensus of 3 of those members to move one way or the other, when we speak about the board, that when I say the board, I mean the board acting with consensus. So yes, we've had boards weigh in, board members have individual conversations with people. A couple have posted on social media, but that is not the board speaking on this issue. The board speaking on this issue is it being agendized during a public meeting, this being brought forward, and their ability to take action on that one way or the other, with consensus being yay or nay.
All right.
I'm a little confused. You said that certain board members have commented about what their comfortability about closing schools. Doesn't it seem inappropriate that any board member would be making any comment publicly at this point without hearing our recommendations? Can you clarify a little bit about that, please?
It's not inappropriate in that board members as individuals have a right to talk about their general inclinations, how I feel about staff, how, what I would do in this case. Board members, as long as they are not coordinating and not violating the Brown Act, they can have opinions, engage, they can speak publicly, but they cannot coordinate those conversations, and they cannot predetermine without being in violation of the Brown Act. So that's that line that's walked.
I think that's all the questions. Jorge, last minute switch.
Yeah, thank you. I have a tendency to be a little bit more practical with the decision-making process, et cetera. And one of the comments that have continued to come to my head is, the boundaries that have not been corrected or updated, I should say. And my natural inclination is to address the recommendations based on geography and where we are. So, for example, this side of town, what's the cluster of schools? Midtown, for example, East Ventura. And then we have the phenomenal corridor, the 126, that is a physical boundary that unfortunately is impractical for somebody that would be, and please, I'm just using it as an example, Juana Maria students not being able to go to, Citrus Grand, which is, geography is very, very close, but it's not practical because of the boundary of the 126, for example. So, are we allowed to discuss or deliberate based on what we feel is geographically the boundaries that we should be looking at and focusing on those? Let's say that we have 3 schools, and of those 3 schools, which one would be the one that makes the most sense? I'm just wondering if that would be a valid way for us to address this.
I think that can be one of the points you look at. And again, that's, I think, one of the values of having a committee doing this and not simply looking at the numbers, because there are those geographic things that might be taken into consideration. So it's possible for whichever group you're in, that can be a very salient point for you that you guys discuss, and that group could decide, as we make our recommendations, this is one of the things we took into consideration. And when you do your report out, you say these are our recommended schools, and one of the things we considered was the geographic boundaries. We wanted to make sure that there was a school here, here, and in this area. That is perfectly valid. All right.
I'm afraid to say it. I think we're good.
I think that's it.
It's right now.
It's jinxing it.
I know.
So I'm going to come around and hand everybody a card, 4 suits. So the hearts are this table, spades are here. There's a little placard on the front so that you know. The diamonds, and then the clubs. So we'll take a couple minutes after I hand them out for you guys to rearrange yourselves. And then I'm going to give you, hold on, I'm going to give you, we'll start with 15 minutes, and I'll come around and check and see how all of you are doing. The idea here, again.
Sorry, I'm going to interrupt everyone, please. If our audience can please just a little, and if members can please listen to directions while we get you all going.
So we're going to break you up into groups. Going to give you 15 minutes first, then I'll check in before I, completely cut it off. Your goal is to rank 7 elementary schools. from the one we'd close, we want to close you don't want to close them. The one that you would put first, second, third through 7, and make a note. We're going to give you some scratch paper as well. If you would, pick someone who's going to be the scribe and someone who's going to report out and tell us what those 7 are, and then the things that you as a group considered as you were coming to those considerations. All right. Any questions on that? Okay.
If you feel the need, I'd like to mention that our committee chair yet again made cookies for everyone. So if there's a need for some comfort food, thank you, Peggy, for that. If we can ask our committee members to take the next 3 or 4 minutes to please find your seat, that would be great. Ladies and gentlemen, just so you know, this is normally the time we take a break. We are not going to take one. Just use the facilities if you need them. Just keep working. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if our committee members can please take their seats, we're going to start the reporting out process.
All right, does anyone want to volunteer to go first, or should I just pick someone? So if you could let me know the schools in order, and then provide your thoughts, reasoning, why your group, what your group kind of thought of, deliberated, and why you selected what you did. Yeah, without the mic, it won't show up on the camera.
And I turned it.
You are spades.
Just click the on button. Thank you.
Very appropriate. I represent the spades. Yes, when I saw that together, I thought we were going to be doing anyhow. Here's the list from number 1 through 7.
Okay.
Lincoln. Yes.
Okay.
Pierpont, number 2. Atlas, 3. Mound, 4. Elmhurst, 5. Lemon Grove, 6. And J. Sarah, 7.
Nope, there, Sarah, 7. Okay, got it.
Lincoln, low enrollment, low growth capacity, and there's other options available nearby.
Go ahead.
Okay, Pierpont. It's not a true neighborhood school. It's small, and it doesn't have a projection of additional families with children to move nearby. Atlas, it has a 50% utility, low enrollment options, and very low projection of further growth. Mound, and I know that this is a very popular school. It's a non-boundary school. It draws too many students from other schools. Okay. Elmhurst does not attract new students, and there's other schools available in proximity. Number 6, Lemon Grove, low enrollment projections. And then J. Sarah, proximity to Citrus Glen, which is a newer campus and offers other possibilities. Thank you. Any questions for the group?
We're going to go through, and then we'll have time for some discussion back and forth. That's okay with everyone?
Okay, okay, one sec, sorry. We need to use microphones, but I think we're going table by table, and then we'll go into discussion for that.
Yeah. Do you want to volunteer to go next? Sure. Okay. Diamonds.
Okay, we're diamonds. Okay, so we only selected 5 schools. Sheridan Way, Atlas, Will Rogers, Juana Maria.
You got to go a little slower for me.
Oh, you guys are writing this down?
Yep. Yes. So you said Sheridan Way was the first one?
Sheridan Way is the first one. Atlas is number 2. Will Rogers is number 3. Juana Maria is number 4. And Poinsettia is number 5. Reason, proximity to other schools nearby that can absorb the kids that attend there based on capacity and enrollment. And also the criteria that we have been studying and reviewing and going through for the last, 6 meetings. So that was very helpful. Thank you.
All right. Hearts or clubs? Who wants to go? Did I?
Yes, clubs have it. Okay, we
hold on one second.
Sorry.
Okay.
What was the?
Number 4 was Juana Maria.
Did I? Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. Thank you.
We only made it to 3.
We're going down. We got for 7.
Yeah,
5.
but we also were joining schools. So, number 1, Sheridan Way. 2, Will Rogers, and 3, J. Sarah. And we were looking at schools. A lot of it was cost, which schools were the most expensive and would continue to be the most expensive to operate, and then which schools could we essentially join together. So we were looking at programs like two-way immersion. Where could those schools join together? Oh yeah, which ones there were some that we took off, like these may not be discussed, and they were Atlas, Pierpont, Sunset, ones that other people have on the ranking. So
okay. All right, thank you. So Hearts.
So after our discussions, we were able to, we only chose 4 because those are the ones we felt most comfortable recommending, and those would be Mound, Lincoln, Poinsettia, and Will Rogers. We chose Mound because it is a non-neighborhood school. Most parents also just drive their kids to school, and there's a lot of traffic because of its location and proximity to other schools. We chose Lincoln because of its size. It has low enrollment, and it could easily be absorbed by other schools. We chose Poinsettia because, again, the ability for families to just drive their kids, and also it is a very high operating cost per student. And since it's located on Victoria, there's often a lot of traffic. For Will Rogers, we chose it because it is close to other schools and it could be absorbed. It is also a high net cost, and it has minimal recent completed upgrades.
Thank you. So I know we had one person who wanted to comment on something else that was said, so go ahead.
I can verify that Pierpont is a neighborhood school. Most of the kids walk there. I attended there for 18 years as a parent. It's a neighborhood school.
Did anybody else have any comment or feedback on any of the other items that any of the other groups noted, or anything you wanted to add?
Jorge?
We considered that closing any of the west side schools would be a mistake. And it was not a consideration for us, only because there's things like Sheridan Way has a grant program. EP Foster has other opportunities for students. And I think that there's other schools that have been drawing from these schools. And I think that those are very important for the community. And losing that would actually be detrimental.
I have a comment on that, if I can.
Yes.
I totally get it. But if you don't look at the building, right? How old is the building? How new is the other building? You have to factor that in too, not just based on, oh, you just can't close it because they're in the west side.
Additionally, I mean, we talked a lot about how do we make sure that, because we're not talking about redoing the boundaries of the neighborhood schools, we felt a strong need to make sure that we're taking into account how would we be spacing these schools out, which ones we're removing or which ones we're recommending to keep. And so looking at the two-way immersion, looking at all of those things, and having those 2 schools. There are 2 schools that are about a mile away from each other, EP Foster and Sheridan Way, and then Lemon Grove and Will Rogers. And so to us, it felt like that was more of a easier decision to do that because they could easily merge together as a neighborhood school.
And
And another part of that conversation was between those two pairs of schools, the two West End schools and Will Rogers and the two Midtown schools, that one had much higher expenses in terms of maintenance and repairs required. And so it made it sort of like, well, let's choose one of these. So it wasn't, it was also that.
Any other comments?
Monica?
Oh.
Yep.
Another thing that our group considered was the K through 8 school and how newer that those programs are to those schools. And if looking at the whole picture, if middle school were to close, could one of those K through 8 school that's nearby help absorb those students?
We talked about that as well, that being that the K-8s are so geographically diverse and we're a big city, we have an East End, a Midtown, and a West End K-8, and looking at likely recommending a middle school to close, the other 3 middle schools, and then the K-8s are, situated to be able to absorb those students.
Yeah.
As well, when we discuss the K-8s, it's having options for parents, because again, what we don't want to do is create a situation where by closing a school, we are essentially forcing a family out of VUSD, further exacerbating the declining enrollment problem. So having options in each of the areas so that no parent would have to drive all the way across the community, there's options within various boundaries.
So correct me if I'm wrong, though. I thought that the programs and stuff were all transferable, and along with, like, say, the capacity versus enrollment. So if you have a K through 8 and you have a newer building, that other K through 8 could potentially go to the other school, seeing how there's a lot of capacity there as far as room goes.
Monica? Sorry, hold on, Monica.
Can you do that speak in the mic so that?
I was just clarifying what she was saying, combining 2 K-8 schools into one.
Yes, because if you look at like Atlas or Citrus Glen, right, they're like 50-50. They're not running at full. So if you take, say, like Atlas, put them into Citrus Glen because that's a newer building, they would be able to absorb that class. Well, I thought that was
Citrus Glen's not a K-8.
But right, so it would be merging the culture, right, and bringing everything over. That's a possibility, right?
I think if I understand what you're saying, your thought is if you closed one of the K-8s, if Citrus Glen, which is not a K-8 right now, Citrus Glen could be turned into a K-8 to absorb that other school plus any other students that might be coming from other closed schools?
Yes, because Citrus Glen is a newer building than Atlas.
Okay, but you'd still then have 3 K-8s, an East End, a Midtown, and a West End.
That's right.
Okay.
Monica?
I was just going to point out for Atlas, there's really no middle school on that end of town. And so just kind of the location where it's at, where it's closer to Los Angeles Avenue, you have people from the apartments and stuff from the other side that are scheduled, the Citrus apartments that are boundaries to Atlas. It'd be easier for them to get the transportation there versus a little bit further.
We're talking about a block, and they're still coming across the way. So if you're crossing from Saticoy to either Atlas or Citrus Glen, you're still crossing the Wells Road. So we're only talking about a block difference. Whether they go to Atlas or Citrus Glen, it's not that far.
Okay, 1 second. We're going to go one at a time and not speak over one another. Monica, did you want to respond?
I just because I live on that end of town, I do feel that it is a little bit further, and you don't have that many. The location where the K through 8 is now, in my opinion, I feel is more as a better location, and it is more accessible to a busier street than what Citrus Glen is.
Melanie?
I'm not sure if I'm doing the math right, but I don't think that that's possible from an absorption standpoint, because right now Citrus Glen only has 132 open spots for kids, and you would need to move 446.
But the building, right, the capacity? No. You don't have enough buildings there?
No, the
Do you have
capacity, it
enough
says student
space to
capacity is
add?
612, and it's currently at 480 at Citrus Glen, and you would need to move 446 kids that are enrolled at Atlas. So there's not enough space at Citrus Glen to do that, if I'm mathing right.
So let's start here before we go back and forth on Citrus Glen. We're going to eliminate a few, I hope. So there are several. I'm going to leave Citrus Glen off the list just for a moment because of this conversation. So we have EP Foster. No one had that on any of their lists. Loma Vista wasn't on anybody's list. Montalvo wasn't on anybody's list, and neither was Portola or Sunset and K8. Could we all agree that wasn't on anybody's lists and we could take those off consideration, the ones that didn't get any votes from anyone? Again, I'm leaving Citrus Glen off for the moment.
I think part of our discussion included Montalvo. We just couldn't quite get there, so.
No, we said don't touch Montalvo.
Oh, I thought it was, okay, my mistake. We needed more time. I guess I'm not going to speak for the group then on that.
Stephanie?
So we actually, again, talking about like geographically and all of that, Montalvo and Portola are closely related. And so we do not believe that Montalvo should be considered. So we think that's a safe school, but Portola was the one we were potentially looking at.
All right, so EP Foster, Loma Vista, Montalvo, and Sunset K8. Can I get a thumbs up if we're all good with eliminating those 4? No, I want a general. Okay, so I'll cross them off so we can all be on the same page. So I heard EP Foster. Oh, where is? Maybe I won't cross them off. Strike through on this thing. Oh, it's not Excel, because Excel definitely does it.
I can change the color.
Oh, okay, I can do that. Let's just do, all right. Red, EP Foster, Loma Vista, Montalvo, and Sunset. Those 4. Right? Yeah. Okay. So I'm just going to back to black. So those disappear. All right, so then the 2 that weren't on anyone's list, but there is some discussion about, potentially, are Citrus Glen and Portola, which is, and
I think it's Sandy, right? Yes. I think we're on the same page that we don't think Citrus Glen should close.
Okay.
It's just what we think should happen to it.
Got it.
That we differ on.
Okay.
Right?
So if we also include Citrus Glen, and Portola was on your list of maybe. Okay, so start with Citrus Glen. Does anybody have a compelling argument why that should stay in the running?
I think there's a good discussion to be had about Atlas K8 and Citrus Glen since they're so close together. And they built new buildings for the middle school. and there's the EIC is on that campus, would they stay there?
The honest answer is we don't know. We try not to influence that. If it came up as a recommendation, then we would have to look at what the alternative is. Yeah. Yeah. But, yeah, that's all I can say. I don't know. Yeah.
Moving the EIC would be a lot of work, making new bathrooms and new facilities and that kind of thing.
It would and it could, but it's also contingent upon what other school might have been closed to know how much more work it would be. But you're absolutely right. There would be reconfigurations and necessary facilities changes with the degree to which we wouldn't know until we know what other schools we were considering moving to.
So I'll ask again about Citrus Glen.
I think Citrus, when I'm looking at the school facility utilization, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just couldn't tell where the voice was coming from.
Oh,
You're good.
Okay. And like currently, it's not bad, but the projection for 31 is not good. It's down to 60% utilization on that campus. So I think, I don't know, I just feel like there's some discussion that hasn't been had there yet.
Okay. So it doesn't sound like there's consensus with taking that off the list at this point yet. Okay. And then Portola, your consideration was that it could still be worthy of discussion, or, okay. So let's look at this. It looks like Elmhurst and Juana Maria, is that it? Were two others that two groups or one each selected, but no one else did. Spades, Elmhurst.
Lemon Grove as well.
You are correct. Thank you. Yeah, you are correct. So many numbers. Pierpont is the fourth. So I'd like to see if we could get any consensus on those before we keep moving forward. So I think Spades, you put Elmhurst and Lemon Grove on the list. Do you have, are there serious objections if those were to come off the list?
I believe we were just trying to meet 7.
That's a valid reason. Go ahead.
We didn't do the 7 because we just wanted to add 7.
Mm-hmm.
We went through a series of conversations over this. It was just not we want to come up with 7.
I know.
I think that there's some very serious thought as to why we made those decisions, selected those campuses.
Could you talk about that a little bit more, just to remind everyone of the benefit of why those two were selected?
So if we Elmhurst, in that order, Elmhurst, it doesn't, according to the data, doesn't seem like it's attracting any new students. And then there's other schools available within proximity. And then as far as Lemon Grove is concerned, there is a low enrollment projection, and we actually have other competing K through 8s. So.
Okay.
We had actually solved that problem.
Oh.
Just do that real quick. Just real quick. We moved Will Rogers to Lemon Grove. So we were keeping Lemon Grove open because we were closing Will Rogers and potentially moving the TWI program over to Lemon Grove. So it's good.
They got it all solved for you, no problem.
We have the same scenario.
I apologize. I don't believe that in our group we have that consensus that would be a solution. We did debate it, but then there's other options. If this committee is not charged with the boundary aspect of that, but we can certainly make a recommendation as a group that would be a serious consideration before the finalization of the board. So.
So I guess my question for you guys, and I should say, what I'm trying to do here, see if we can narrow this down before you guys have a conversation again on the ones that are left. So my question for that one is, since you guys are the only ones that put Levin Grove on the list, would you object to it being taken off the list, given the information that you've just heard, knowing that it could be a recommendation to the board, not? No objection. Okay. All right. So everyone's good with Lemon Grove coming off the list? Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, we need to do a family feud huddle. 1 second.
I think I was just confused by the question. We were the only ones who put it on the list.
Correct.
And now you're removing it from the list, which means everybody agrees to remove it from the list?
In this table right here.
Yeah, but she took it off the list for everybody.
Because nobody else had it on their list.
Oh, sorry. I need another Diet Coke.
Family feud has a consensus that
There
we're
you
okay
go.
with that.
So did you guys also solve Elmhurst so we can get that one? No? Okay, okay, got it. How about Spades? You were also, nope, sorry, wrong one. No, yeah, Spades was also for Pierpont. Thoughts on that one in your Family Feud consensus?
Having been on the, why am I forgetting what committee that is? It has to do with the, please remind me, Hassan? The 7-Eleven committee, and when it comes down to bonds and so forth, Pierpont seems to be one of the ones that has a lot of maintenance issues related to its proximity to saltwater, ocean air stuff. So it's just consistent. I know that we spent a lot of money on putting grass and so forth. It was a serious consideration over the physical aspect of the homes that are located there and how it attracts as a second home and not necessarily a primary home that would necessarily add additional growth. And this is just from the perspective of someone that knows the community on a first-hand level from outside in. So,
Kristen?
I respectfully disagree. I can tell you it is a neighborhood school. The kids walk there. Most of the kids do walk there. In addition, the reason why we didn't even contemplate that, putting my emotions aside, being that I went there, I'm looking at this objectively, and if you're focusing on the criteria, that doesn't make sense. So I personally, based on the criteria, object to Pierpont being on the list.
So on Pierpont, we also, again, trying to first do no harm, right? Don't push parents unnecessarily out of the district by removing their school of choice. And we felt that Pierpont was one that had a unique offering that you can't find anywhere else in the district. And it also did satisfy that neighborhood school feel. So we also felt like that should absolutely be a safe school.
It's also very highly enrolled.
And I would agree because I know people that live there, so it's not like a second home. They actually live there and go to school there.
So I'll just ask, Spades, do you have an objection to taking it off the list?
We don't have a consensus, so we'd like to leave it on.
Okay. The next one that only had one is Juana Maria Diamonds.
Well, some of us in the group thought that Juana Maria and Mound, like kind of one or the other kind of thing, because they're close to each other and biking wise, they can get there safely to the park.
So you're saying one or the other should stay, the other one could?
Yes.
Given that Mound is on the list with 2 teams, would your group object to taking Juana Maria off the list, since you're the only ones that selected it?
Some of us agree.
To take off.
To take it off the list, because Mound is still there.
That would be voting from Mound instead. It wouldn't be on the list, of course.
If there's no consensus, that's okay.
There's no consensus.
Okay. And I think the only one then was Spades again. Sorry. This is, look, it's all my fault because you listened to me and gave me 7. You can blame it on me.
I think that I would, this is going to be a very difficult conversation to have because we don't feel that Juana Maria should be on the list, for example. And in full disclosure, I had no students or kids that went to Juana Maria School. I did live next to Juana Maria School as a teenager. I didn't get to go to that school. I believe that Juana Maria actually offers much more options for growth, and I think it serves, geographically, it serves that area of Ventura that I think needs that school. So that's why, I mean, if it was up to, Juana Maria was not even a conversation for us in this group. So it's, looking back, if I feel like we have a target on our back because we came up with 7. So
Like, you can blame it on me.
Yeah, so that's.
So, but I'm asking about Elmhurst.
Oh, Elmhurst.
But thank you for that feedback.
But we appreciate that because it's good.
Sorry, I get, squirrel.
Yeah.
Good little, I'm not the only one making the decision on Elmhurst, but how do you guys think?
I'm just going to say we were almost ready to put that one on our list, so can we maybe not take that one off?
Okay.
I'll relieve you, Jorge. Yeah?
All right.
It was almost our list.
Okay. We'll leave it. So I'm going to take another tact. 3 out of 4 groups selected Will Rogers to be one of the schools that close. I'm going to keep doing this to poor Spades. And this is under the guise of, as we have another round of conversations at the table of the reduced list, could we all agree that Will Rogers would be one that's on the list with 3 of the 4 groups that selected that one?
I think so.
Okay.
Oh, we think so.
Okay. All right. So that leaves us with, let me count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 schools. With the exception of Citrus Glen had at least 1 group that selected it. Does anyone else, before we break up again, does anybody else have an argument for or against one of the other schools that's still on the list?
I'm just wondering if, because 2 groups selected Sheridan Way as their number 1, is that one we could look at and maybe quickly give our reasons and then move it one way or another?
Yeah. So maybe, let's start with this. Clubs and Diamonds, could you tell us once again your reasons why you put it on your list?
Because EP Foster could absorb the students.
Okay.
And they did a bunch of upgrades at EP Foster recently. And they're just so close to each other. And they have the number of students that are in the Sheridan Way boundary that go to EP Foster or vice versa is equal.
Okay.
close.
And then we were very similar to that, but then we also looked at the cost. I think Sheridan Way is the only school that's listed as in poor condition and would make, would cost a lot of money. Yeah, something like $20 million. That was, yeah, the TWI program could be relocated to EP Foster so we can maintain the integrity of that program and get rid of the cost that we're accruing right now.
Got it.
Is that right? Yeah.
Spades and hearts. Any strong objections to Sheridan Way being one of the schools that is recommended for closure? Neither of you selected it in your top 4 to 7.
I live in the neighborhood, and I think that so many kids and families walk to school in both those communities, and they're densely populated and they're underserved communities. I think that we should reconsider closing either one of those, personally.
Any comments?
I agree. Yeah.
Any comments, Spades? No. Any comments from you? Not.
No, we don't have any comments right now, other than we were asking Oscar why he didn't give us some feedback on Sheridan Way, like the other people did. So we've been kind of harassing Oscar because he knows all the campuses. So.
Wow. All right. So I think that one's staying for consideration. Did you have your hand raised? Sorry.
I know that we put Sheridan on the way. Again, it's not anything subjective. We're looking at it objectively, and it's a 40. It's the highest rated based on the criteria, which leads me to my next question, staying objective about this. I don't understand why Mound would be on the list when it's a 29. So I don't, I'm looking at the data. I'm a data person, so I would like someone to explain that to me, because I don't think it should be on the list for that reason, looking at the criteria.
So maybe Hearts, could you tell us again, if you don't mind, what your reasons were for Mound? Emmanuel, I think you had the...
Oh, we just thought that the students and the parents would be the least burdened out of everybody around if the school closed.
And Spades, could you tell us your reason for Mound?
Yes, I'm a data person as well, and the data that I was looking at was how many students Mound pulls from other neighboring schools, and that is becoming detrimental to the survivorhood of our neighborhood schools. Mound is not a neighborhood school, so if you're going to close Juana Maria or Mound, you should probably hang on to the neighborhood school, send these kids back. They have 91 students from Elmhurst alone at Mound. And I'm not sure, I did ask the question, but I'm not sure how that is affecting the test scores. So that's another criteria that is skewed by all of this. So I think we need to not just look at the criteria that we were fed, but look deeper and take each piece apart. And that's why we put Mound on there, and we want to keep it on there.
Stephanie?
We feel very strongly that Mound should stay, again, because it is one of the highest enrolled. And if we close that school, those parents are going to look elsewhere where to put their kids. And I don't believe it's taking them back to the neighborhood school that they already had the choice to go to. It feels very much like those parents would select to take their kids out of the district and put them in private school, which would further exacerbate our enrollment problem. So if our goal is to keep enrollment as high as possible, we need to have a mix of the schools that are desirable, like Pierpont and Mound and some of the others, and options for parents to really select what's best for their student. For instance, the K through 8s, or an actual regular middle school, depending on what their students' needs are. So we were trying to look at geographically by how high or low enrollment is, and then also what parent choice could be, and trying to keep the best mix of all of those in order to, again, we don't, first do no harm. We don't want to lose more students because we're closing a school that's highly desirable. And the data on the school the other school that we were talking about, Sheridan Way, is 41% enrolled right now. That's very, very low. Or 46, I'm sorry.
Plus, I'm sorry, one last thing about Mound is that because it's not a neighborhood school, the scoring on that school is not as fair, for lack of a better word. It doesn't compare apples and apples because it's not a neighborhood school.
Okay.
We are now at 10 minutes before this meeting is supposed to end, so we actually need to ask this committee if they would like to continue this conversation this evening, or I mean, obviously we'll continue for the next 10 minutes, but do you want to extend it further, and if so, to what time?
And just so you know what I'd like to do, since we've heard all the comment, we have one more from Jorge, is have you sit back in your groups, or stay in your groups, and the reduced list is, let's try this one more time. I think if we could, it looks like 4 seems to be a good number from what we had before. So if we could do that one more time to get the ranking from all of you for 4 schools and see if we can get to some consensus there.
And thank you for that.
1 second, sorry, we need to know if we're extending.
Oh,
so do we have consensus from this group to extend the meeting? Thumbs up if yes.
Until when? Well, what's the other alternative?
The next meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we still have a junior high and a high school to do.
Correct.
Right.
Take a break.
So I'll throw a number out there. We extend till 9:15.
I was going to go for 9.
Okay, I'm sorry. Told not. Hey, y'all didn't come up with the number.
Half an hour.
So 9 o'clock, a half an hour or so. So 9 o'clock. That's 40 minutes. Do we have consensus? Yes or no? Thumbs up.
No.
We do not have consensus. So we have the next. I need to see thumbs up from the group if we have 9 o'clock.
No.
Can I make a suggestion?
You can make a suggestion.
I think once we are able to narrow the list down a little bit, we take that time to review our materials, and then at our next meeting, come back being better prepared for those schools, and then also being prepared for discussing the middle and high school.
So you're saying go back into your groups one more time and then narrow down the list to about 4. So that will likely take you till about 9 o'clock this evening, but I'm not seeing consensus for that. Okay. We have 10 minutes and then we will adjourn.
Okay, so if I may, when we're making the recommendation of this, it's closing the campus, and I know that the other group has made, it went a little bit deeper as to, well, if we do this, we can move them. Our recommendation would be, if there's so much magic in that program, why can't we just move into a facility that would better accommodate and maybe even expand it? So right now, we're just focused on the specific campus, and we're in agreement that the location of Mound School is not necessarily the most appropriate. And I'm wondering if a physical location that better suits the program would actually enhance to it. So that's why we have it on the list as well, other than the fact that it's important that it is drawing from other campuses. But anyhow, just want to make that clarification, that if it is so magical, then we really need to duplicate it somewhere else or through the whole school district.
Sarah? There is no special program there. It's just a special school.
All right.
It has no boundary. So I think not having a boundary is a big deal to some people.
So here's my question and recommendation. If we could, I'm trying to do mental math and see if this will work, or let me know if this will work. If we agreed to 8:45, take 10 minutes for you and your groups, So you'd have to do this a little bit quicker to look at those schools that we have left to come up with those 4. We could report those out, and then we are done for the evening. And when we come back at the next meeting, the first thing we'd be doing is, okay, here's where we ended up, here's the schools, how they ranked, and then we're going through this conversation. Would that work for everyone? Yeah.
We've already decided Will Rogers is on the
That's
list,
on the
right?
list.
So 4 more or 4 total?
I was going for 4 more.
Okay. That's going to take us longer than 15.
But if it's 4, if all I'm going to get is 4 total, I will take it. But that would get, if we did 4 more, that would get us 5 total.
And I don't want to unnecessarily complicate this, but I also heard from multiple tables earlier that you felt the desire to revisit even these things based on what middle schools would be recommended. So just remember that too. You had already kind of committed to this idea of this is for now. It's not a permanent decision. Based on how the conversation played out in the middle schools, some of you felt you wanted to be able to come back and take a look at this again. So again, if you end up with 4 more, you're still going to end up in an environment where you're still revisiting those 4 more. So.
And just based on Monica's suggestion that if we have a list of 8 and then we have a month before we come back again, that does give us a time to process kind of those 8. And I think 8:45, can we agree to 8:45?
Will that work?
Higher. Or if you're a thumbs down, can you make sure I see your thumbs down? Okay. So it's not universal, but it's strong consensus. Can we go to 8:45?
Okay. All right. So.
And we'll pick 4 more.
Yep. It's 20. I can't talk now. 25 after. So 35 after. Same kind of thing. If you'll put together a list and some of the reasons why for the ones that aren't blacked out. Okay, sounds like everybody's ready. Can I get everyone's attention? Maybe. All right. So let's go through this one more time with the 10 schools we have left. We're looking for an additional 4 to 5. Okay. Do I have any volunteers to go first? All right, I'm gonna start in order. Hertz.
We were able to agree on 4 instead of 5. And what we chose were Will Rogers, Mound, Lincoln, and Poinsettia.
All right. Any thoughts or on reasons why, or we didn't?
Yeah, it's same reasons we said at first.
Okay, thank you. All right, Spades.
Our top 4 are Lincoln, Pierpont, Atlas, and Mound.
Okay, hold on. Lincoln. Did I? Oh, I sure did. I keep doing that.
Yes, so to make it easier, we removed our vote on J. Sarah and Elmhurst.
So
Lincoln, Pierpont.
Atlas and Mound.
Okay. Diamonds.
Okay, top 4, Sheridan Way, Atlas, Will Rogers, and Juana Maria. Oh, sorry, Poinsettia.
So I'm sorry, do that again. You said Sheridan Way, Atlas.
Juana Maria, Poinsettia.
Any different thoughts or reasons from your original?
Nope.
Okay, thanks. Clubs?
Okay, so Will Rogers was first, right? So that's already off.
Yep.
Sheridan Way, J. Sarah, and Elmhurst.
And we cannot reach an agreement on that. Yeah, we don't.
We cannot, yeah. But we did, like, one of the other pieces of information that we spent some time looking at are the number of students that come into the district, into these schools. And we just thought it was interesting that Atlas has 45 that come into the district. Montalvo has 39. Mound has 46. Portola has 49. Sunset has 42. And Will Rogers had 33. Students.
All right, so it looks like Citrus Glen still has, nobody has it on the list. Portola, still nobody has it on the list. Can we take those off the list? Do we have consensus across the groups? Yeah? Diamonds? Yeah, okay. Citrus and Portola. That one's on the list already. So, okay. So I won't drag this out since we said 8:45 and that's 5 minutes from now. So we have a reduced list. So what we'll do when we come back at the next meeting that's already scheduled, that the date is September 17th. And we'll give you more information on the logistics on that in a second. So we'll start with this reduced list again and see if we can get it down to 4 to 5. And then we'll move to the middle schools and to the high schools. All right? Yes, Tony.
Will you be able to send us
Microphone, please.
Will you be able to send us the data on the middles and the high schools so we can look at it ahead of time?
We can do that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Marianne?
For our next meeting, as you're seeing, we have additional people in our audience, and now that you have discussed specific schools, historically, other districts have now seen a lot more public wanting to attend the meetings. So our next meeting will not be here. It will be off-site. We will get you that location as soon as we confirm it. It will be next week. It'll be here in Ventura. Don't worry. I'm sorry, did I say next week? I'm tired. Look, y'all, we're still trying to get through the first 2 weeks of school, so we started on a Wednesday. Okay, so the next meeting will be off-site. We will get that information to you as soon as we can. It'll probably take a few more days. We're going to look at a couple places, but we need a much larger facility based on other districts and what has happened in the past. So we will get back to you with that information.
Are we going to be in the same teams the next time?
Yes, because we want to finish this conversation about the elementary schools. So yeah.
Annette?
Do you expect it to be a longer meeting?
Well,
so we will be discussing public comment and whether there will be additional time for public comment with your committee chair. We'll have to decide that, whether or not there's additional time and or if people are limited to 1 minute instead of 3. However, there probably will be a time limit of how long we will listen to public comment, given that you have work that you have to do, but we'll discuss that with your your committee chair.
And just on that note, can I just say and remind us all that we are trying to do hard work here, and we are representatives of this committee, each and every one of us, and the conversations that we have with folks now that this has been discussed, I think it's really important to remain objective and as professional as possible in our conversations. So just wanted to add that. Are you ready to close?
And just one other note, I think at the first meeting you guys learned about the Brown Act, and so just be sure that you guys aren't getting together and having conversations outside of the public meeting that's going to be happening, because that would be a violation, so just keep that in mind. Okay?
Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
And a second. And all in favor? Aye.